welcome to part two of our discussion of Quentin Tarantino's films that he's been involved in, from writing, directing, and producing as well. And now we're getting to 1996, where we get From Dusk Till Dawn, which was written by Tarantino, produced by Tarantino, and also starring Tarantino in his first starring role.
And helped a little bit with direction of
Yeah,
Tarantino. So it's pretty much a Tarantino director as much as it is Freddie Rodriguez's movie.
yeah, and it's directed by Robert Rodriguez, and this was Robert Rodriguez's biggest second breakout directed movie since Desperado in 1995 earlier. And this film also got George Clooney into the mainstream as a big film star, which while he was on ER. And it stars him and Harvey Keitel, Tarantino himself, Juliette Lewis, Cheech Marin, and Salma Hayek. And in this film, I got to be honest, like growing up, this was actually the very first film that I watched from Robert Rodriguez growing up.
It was me because I actually never saw Desperados for many, many, many years. Like,
Yeah.
I watched the Once Upon a Time in Mexico before that.
Yeah, and this movie, we deal with. It's kind of hard to describe this because this movie feels like two different movies.
And not only that, this movie is considered like almost everybody's top list of favorite vampire films. It's in my top 30.
Yeah, it's in mine too. And in this film, we deal with a couple of criminals, a couple of bank robbers, Seth and Richie Gecko, who are pretty much on their way to meet up a friend of theirs in El Rey, Mexico, and and along the way they end up becoming, well, to set it up, they're bank robbers who end up, if you see the opening scene, they fucking kill the Texas Ranger in the liquor store. And keep an eye on that because that same guy actually makes appearances in other Tarantino films. Mm-hmm. And they end up having the liquor store destroyed and all that their shootout breaks out with the store owner and all that. And they end up going to go on the run to get away from all the police and all that. And they end up the first half of the film, believe it or not, feels like a completely different movie because this movie.
You know what the first half reminds me of? Oliver Stone.
Yeah, it does with them
because
on the run.
It's doing the whole new segment. The Gecko brothers are still the most wanted men in America, and because they apparently go around robbing banks, slaughtering people in the process. Because in the movie, Quentin Tarantino is the brother of George Clooney. George Clooney is a more demanding guy, but if you meet his demands and do as he told, you're good. But Quentin Tarantino plays more the psychopathic brother who has a need for killing
and raping, because they end up taking hostage there. And this whole like first half feels kind of unnerving because they're discussing their plan on order to get to Mexico and all that. And we have a scene where Tarantino is like trying to, fuck with the hostage and everything. And there's actually a scene where he's like trying to get her to go in the bedroom with him and all that. And when Clooney comes back, he ends up noticing that the woman's not in the room. He goes back in the bedroom and, well, we only see flashes of it, but you can tell that there's something very unsettled that happened where pretty much the woman got raped and fucking, like, there's blood just like flashing everywhere.
Oh my God. You know what the blood reminds me of? This room has so much blood. It reminds me of the scene where Jason killed that one camper and Jason Lives and just pulled her went in that cabin, just started hacking her to shreds, and the whole fucking cabin was filled with blood. Yeah. That's what that seems like. And it's really unnerving because you start thinking, God damn, Quentin Tarantino is fucked in the head.
Yeah. And I was like, damn.
Clooney actually, while is a fucking bad guy, he's the head honcho. He freaks out on his brother. Goes, what the fuck is wrong with you?
He's like, do you think this is what I am? I do not kill women or kill people that I don't have to, and I don't fucking rape women. That's one thing I love about Clooney's character in this, is that while he is a bad guy, he still has moral grounds that you actually kind of root for him in this.
Yeah, he has a compassion. While he is fucked up and he does some bad shit he shouldn't be doing, he's got limits. Yeah, and he thinks his brother's going above and beyond. He goes, look, you're my brother. I wouldn't fucking kill your ass.
Yeah, and then pretty much afterwards,
George Clooney gets tired of his shit because he is fucked. because he's what it is. Quentin Tarantino's making their situation even worse as they
Yeah.
go along.
Exactly. And then pretty much we get introduced to Harvey Keitel's character, who's a former preacher, and him and his daughter and son are on their way to traveling and all that in their RV. And they end up coming across seeing George Clooney in the same hotel room. And they end up getting encountered by Tarantino and Clooney, and the scene where he's basically having the kid putting the fucking gun in his mouth. He's like, open your mouth wide. And he ends up negotiating with them about how they're in hot water and they need to get to Mexico and they have to use their RV to get there. And during this scene, you can also feel the unnervingness with Tarantino, because he's very attracted to Julia Lewis's character, and he actually fantasized that she's saying, "Richie, would you eat my pussy for me?"
And he goes, sure. No, like he's seeing shit and he thinks it's real, because in another scene later on the road, he asks her, "Is it true you want me to?" And he's kind of scared to say it, but like he that it shows a psychotic side to him, like he's like schizophrenic or something. Like
yeah.
He's shit that ain't there, but it's always involves sex, and that's what makes me laugh about Quentin Tarantino, because man, he does make a fucking funny ass pervert.
Yeah, he does.
And yeah, they're in this like hotel scene, basically telling them, what the rules are going to be, and if they follow the rules and get them where they need to go, he has said they're free to go.
Yep.
And basically, and then you get to this the border, which they're getting to Mexico, and it's being heavily monitored, of course. And you can kind of feel the unnervingness where which Cheech Marlin comes in. He plays several characters in this movie, by the way. And you see him playing a border patrol, and basically Harvey Keitel's character is basically, trying to get him over the border, but there's some kind of like red flags popping up where Cheech Marlin wants to go on board to take a look.
Yeah.
And they pull off quite a cool gimmick,
do.
where, he's on board. They're all, you got Quentin Tarantino bitching and moaning and shit. And he goes, blah, 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 and George Clooney knocks him out with a punch, a Batman punch. Boom.
Yeah. And then,
but basically, gets him over the border with this pretty clever move. And they're on their way to the Titty Twister.
Yeah, and then when they were on their way, they're also Seth is trying to get him is trying to get to know Harvey Keitel's character and all that, about his wife and everything. And he says that if anything, I'll make sure that nothing happens to your daughter, and I promise you, once we get there, your daughter will be safe and sound. And he's like, and he actually tells him straight up. He says to Harvey Keitel, he's like, when Harvey Keitel's like, if he touches her, I'm gonna fucking kill him. And then George Clooney's like, fair enough. If you don't kill him, I kill all of y'all. And it just shows how much of a negotiation type of guy that Seth is,
Yeah, compared to Quentin Tarantino. And like you said, he starts seeing her, will you eat my pussy? And he's just looking down at her, just like up and down, like he wants to. And it's kind of really kind of menacing, because I think Juliette Lewis, her character is supposed to play a underage girl.
Yeah, and because I think because that's right. And when they get there, we get probably one of the most like funniest scenes that I've seen. Probably the most funniest scene of the entire film. When they get there, they get to this bar called the Titty Twister, and outside we get to see Cheech Martin again. This time playing a different character where he's like, "Come on in, pussy lovers."
Yeah, this to me, I love the whole movie, but for this segment alone is probably my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's Cheech Marlin goes, we got white pussy, black pussy, yellow pussy, chicken pussy, got smelly pussy, muddy pussy,
we got
horse pussy.
Come on in, pussy lovers.
Yeah, come in, pussy lovers. He goes, if you want only a penny and you find anywhere else, fuck it.
Yeah. He's like, what you got here? Apple pie pussy.
Yeah. Yeah, apple pie pussy. And then fucking, man, George Clooney just beats the fuck out of him.
He's like, now is my shit together? Is my shit together?
And then walks in because they were trying to tell him he can't go in, and he fucking hits him down. And again, Quentin Tarantino, he has to get the last fucking he likes delivering pain on people. So he turns around and goes, "How you like that? Do you like that? Huh? Huh?"
Yeah.
How you doing? Just the shit out of him.
Yeah. And then when they go in, he's like, "Hey, this is my kind of place," and they end up getting sent around. And this is I remember the first time I watched this, man. I'm not gonna lie, I was about I want to say about I was about 5 or 6. It was when the movie was
God,
was
man, I'm
first
so
coming
much
on.
older. I am
Well,
so much older
well,
than
no, when
you,
the movie
man.
first came on DVD for the first time, that's the first time I actually saw it. That was about maybe 6, 7, I want to say. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was seeing titties for the first time in a movie like
Dude,
that.
dude, I was fucking 10 when that movie came out. I'm old. Godly.
Yeah. But when they get in there, they also come across the bartender played by Danny Trejo, and he's like, "This bar is for bikers and truckers." And
You.
"Well, you see the RV out there? I'm a truck driver."
Yeah. And he again, Harvey Keitel's just playing it smoothly. Just he's so good at like saving the geckos from like, a lot of bad shit. And like George Clooney ends up gaining a lot of respect at this point with him. He's like, "Here, man, let's have a drink together. I'm buying everything."
Yeah. And then we also get introduced to some other colorful characters, like you got Fred Williamson's character, who's the guy with the always smoking the cigar and shit. And then you got Tom Savini playing one of the coolest characters in the Tarantino movie, Sex Machine,
Next
with the
machine with
fucking
a gun on his
crotch gun.
dick. That one motherfucker tries to take his shit and he takes the beer with the whip. And the dude
Yeah.
gets pissed and he pops out that gun shaped like a dick and balls.
Yeah. And what's funny is that same gun was used in Desperado as the same type of weapon that they used that Rodriguez used. And it's just like already from the get go, the movie just has such a fun vibe to it. And then we get into after some, they're chilling out and drinking and all that. We get into what I consider one of the hottest parts that I've ever seen in a fucking movie like this, where we get to see Salma Hayek do this very sexy dance of hers.
Yeah. Oh my God. This scene with her. Holy shit. Holy shit. She is so fine.
Yeah, and she's pretty much like going like dancing and all that. She's even getting Tarantino suck on her foot and shit and pouring liquor on it. I was like, oh man, if only I could do that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Where she lets it lick down her like feet and I think it was Quentin Tarantino, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
was
it
sucking
was. It
feet.
was her.
Of course, it was him.
Yeah.
The pervert of all of them. He's like, he's got that foot fetish thing.
Yeah, that's Tarantino for you.
Yeah. And because he was looking at Julie Lewis's feet earlier, and you could tell he's got this foot thing.
Yeah. That's like he is in real life. That's how all his movies are. But anyway, yeah, after that goes down, we end up getting Cheats comes back from outside after he gets beat up and all that. And he's talking to Danny Trejo and this other dude about
He
Richie
goes,
and
"This is the
Seth.
motherfucker that beat me up, and this
This
piece of shit kept kicking me."
He's like, this piece of shit here, man. He broke my finger and my nose, and this faggot kicked me in the ribs when I was down.
Yeah. And then like that's whenever it gets kind of like a Mexican standoff thing where everybody's getting their guns out.
Yeah, and they end up he ends up beating the shit out of or Seth ends up shooting the shit out of fucking Danny or the other dude, and they end up shooting Cheech and all
They
them.
end up they all end up they're shooting Cheech and all them and stuff and because um Quentin Tarantino's character gets stabbed in his hand.
Yeah,
And Salma Hayek sees the blood, and that's when it starts becoming more of a vampire movie because she can't hold the urge in. And that's when you see all the ones they shot up get up and laughing, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And
yeah,
then that's when Salma Hayek's character turned into a full-on vampire. Which man, this is some of the scariest looking fucking vampires I've ever
oh,
seen.
well, and what's interesting before that, if you'll notice something, when they stab Danny Trejo's like hand on the fucking table and shit, it shows green blood go down, and that was actually kind of clever that Rodriguez did that because that was the way to get past the censorship. Because if you notice that the censors usually go by red blood in a lot of movies, he decided to change it to green blood so that way he could show more of the gore.
Yeah.
And that was actually it. Really, and it shows that when she turns that fucking vampire, man, she is fucking creepy as hell. I was like, damn.
She jumps on fucking Quentin Tarantino and bites him in the throat. And when these vampires in this movie actually bite you and fucking suck your blood, boy, did that shit squirts everywhere.
Oh
Like
yeah,
they
dude.
tear your artery apart. And fuck, dude, he's sitting there, dude. I mean, his entire blood system was all over him, and he's just like, he ends up dying right there, and then they realize like all the fucking everybody's turning vampires, and it's like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah, and it pretty much becomes like, yeah, it gets so. This is pretty much like where the movie kicks into gear with the whole vampire thing. And man, everyone just starts getting fucking stabbed and bit and everything, and they're having to kill them with stakes and shit, like you see in other vampire movies. And we also see the part where we actually see the crotch gun come in handy, where Tom C's like, "What the fuck?" And then the
Fuck,
fucking
starts shooting him.
yeah,
Tom Savini, dude, he's underrated. Like when he could do like, I wish that he would like get in movies like more and play funnier parts like he did in Planet Terror. I wish
yeah.
he would do more of that again because he is. I would pay to see a Sex Machine movie.
I do too, yeah. And plus, it's also funny because he's also having this fight with Danny Trejo and shit, and he's using the fucking whip and pulling him, and then he's got a fucking pull stick,
Yeah.
and he actually just gives it to he just throws it to him, and then Trejo's like, huh? And then
Yeah.
yeah, there's actually, and then we pretty much also get into also these other weird looking vampires too, like the shit that looks like out of Daybreakers and all that, where they're all decayed and everything, you
Yeah.
know. And then pretty much all the survivors that come out are just Harvey Keitel and the kids, and you got the biker dude.
George Clooney. You get the black dude, and then you have the Tom Savini.
Yeah,
Basically, the only survivors left, and they're pretty much trying to survive the whole night. And through some of the dilemmas that were going on, a couple of them were already bitten, didn't know it, and that was the black dude and Tom Savini.
well, yeah, it was. Well, no, not that's later, but pretty much the one
Yeah.
that ends up this all starts is it also has to deal where Richie ends up coming back to life as a vampire, and Seth has to make the ultimate choice to pretty much kill him.
Well,
And
somebody was going to kill him, and then Seth was like, "Fuck no,
yeah, and then he ends
it's
up
my brother. I'll kill your ass."
yeah, and then he ends up taking the stake, and he ends up killing him on his own. And then pretty much after that, they're going around making sure all the bodies are burned up and shit, and to make sure they're dead. And then Sex Machine actually gets bit himself. And then later on in the film, we get this weird scene where it shows him basically like hearing voices inside his head, like the fucking vampires starting. He was like, "Sex Machine." I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, kill him, and then his teeth start getting big. He's like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah.
And then like you start getting then this where we get the scene with the black dudes talking about like Vietnam or some shit he was
Yeah,
in.
he was a Vietnam, yeah. And he ends
And
up
he's like,
getting hit by him.
Vietnam. Yeah, and he's sitting there smoking his big cigar like he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, just talking about Vietnam and all the Charlies and stuff they had to fight and all that. And next you know, Sex Machine like comes up with his little fingers tickling him and shit, and then bites him.
Yeah. And then after that, we also get to see, tragically, we see Harvey Keitel get bit as well after, and then and then they have to end up going to the back area where the parlor area is from the vampires. And this is also after Fred Williamson's character ends up becoming a vampire. They accidentally throw a sex machine out, and all the fucking bats come in. They start swarming the place, so now they're overrun. And
Yeah, by millions of them. And
yeah,
basically, they go and hide out in this little area where they've been keeping all the truckers, like a bunch of like ammunition and trucking stuff. They've been piling up, and they find out that it's been a free feeding place for years.
hmm
People just like been getting slaughtered for many years here, and basically, Harvey Keitel is basically telling his kids, he goes, "I'm in 30 minutes. I'm going to be dead. I'm going to become an undead. I'm going to be them. You guys got to promise me to kill me."
yeah.
And George Clooney makes a promise to him that he would he'd protect his kids and get them out there
Yeah, and
and get
that's
them
why
to
that's
safety.
yeah, that's what I also enjoyed as well with this was that you can tell the genuine. It reminds me of the friendship between Keitel and Tim Roth in Reservoir Dogs. How really cares for the guy to make it out of the situation and stuff.
Yeah, Seth actually does like a pretty 180 guy because he's seen evil now. It's like, he's like, fuck this, I'm done.
Yeah. And then you can
And
also,
basically, yeah. So they go out there, and man, these fucking vampires look fucking scary, man. And they go out there, and they're basically trying to fight their weight off. And this was a big surpriser, but this one actually blew me away. This scene where they're all fighting off and stuff, and they end up getting that his son.
yeah, his son
And
ends up
they're
getting
all,
killed
yeah,
by
yeah.
pigs.
They all like it was a disturbing scene, man, because like they're all like killing the vampires, and like all these like little vampires are making these little weird noises and shit, and they run all kind of awkward and like scary looking, and like 7 or 8 of them pick him up and start fucking eating him. Like they're all fucking eating him in all parts of his body, and they're all feasting off him. And the son
Yeah.
is basically telling his sister, "Kill me." And then
Yeah.
when she does, she shoots him, and and he explodes with her.
Yeah. And
I was
then,
like, damn, I didn't expect that to happen.
yeah, and then we pretty much have her, and George Clooney, Seth, end up becoming pretty much the last survivors, and they're having to fend off. And then they they see that the sun's about to come up outside based on bullet
Yeah.
holes and
Oh, that's
stuff.
when Harvey Keitel also turns too.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
he
because he ends
also,
up
well,
biting
his
his
son,
son.
yeah,
Yeah.
his son ended up killing him before he ended up getting killed.
Yeah, and then yeah, it's George Clooney and Lewis left, and basically they hear, they're basically surrounded and have no other choice, and then next thing you know, you see like them busting windows out, and then what really sets it off is Cheech Marlin playing a third character coming out, and they
Carlos.
bust and open the doors. Yeah, Carlos, and it pretty much when they opened the door, it ended up frying every vampire in there, and basically George Clooney they end up meeting up, and they end up fucking he ends up socking him right in the face. He goes, motherfucker. He goes, do you know what this place is? Out of all places in Mexico, you want to meet here?
Yeah,
he
and
goes,
then
he goes, my brother is dead. That little girl's fucking family is dead because of you. Oh, said, how can I make it up to you?
you
You want a
can't
beer?
make it up. Yeah,
Can't make it up.
yeah,
And this part where I actually kind of respect Seth even more, he pretty much gives her money,
yeah.
money,
He ends up letting
and
her
he
go.
says,
Drive
"Go
her.
and yeah, go and have a good life." And she goes, "Can I come with you?" And he goes, "You don't want to go where I'm going."
Yeah, and
He's like, "Here, have all the money. You go."
which one thing I also wanted to point out too was that too about this movie as well, going back to Harvey Keitel's character, was that throughout the film he's a priest that's lost back.
Yeah,
Actually makes him become pretty much getting his faith back at the end of it.
yeah, because he lost his faith because his wife was taken
Yeah,
from cancer, and basically he kind of blamed God from it. And he said, if this is God's plan, then then I don't like this religion.
well, she
You know,
died in a car accident.
Oh, car accident. That's what it was. That's what I thought was cancer. It was something else I was thinking of. But yeah, yeah, he lost his faith, and then he gains it back towards the end.
Yeah, and then pretty much, yeah, it ends where they end up Clooney and the Julia Lewis end up going their separate ways, and it also
This
pans
is
back.
one of my parts I really like was where it starts panning out and plays the classic song, which I actually think is pretty cool. The Dark Night, ding, ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding, 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 and it starts panning out. And when it pans out, you notice there's like this like an Aztec pyramid, like it's been going on for centuries.
yeah, which there's a hint of that because they actually lead that up into it ties into that back to the third movie, which
Yep.
is a prequel. But yeah, overall, man, like this movie like has so much going for it as a vampire movie. Even though it feels like two disjointed movies. Like first half, it's kind of like a regular straight up criminal on the run movie, and the second half is like a vampire movie. I still feel like it blended so well with it.
It does.
Like
It blends it well because it's about guys who think they're the fucking badasses until they reach somewhere where they're like, what the fuck?
yeah, and then when you
That's
got
evil, and then it changes Seth. It changes his motivation from what he was, and it's kind of like Harvey Keitel's like life went into Seth because Seth is like more of like what he saw is like, all right, I'm a changed man.
yeah, and
I'm
then
gonna
you
go
got
down to El Rey and I'm just gonna fucking kick back on margaritas. I'm done.
Yeah, and I love the performances are all great too. I think this is actually one of my favorite Clooney performances that I
Oh,
like.
it is because Clooney is a way up there, like as far as A-listers. Other than the Ocean's movies and this movie, haven't really been much of a big fan of him.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
I'm not a big fan of his movies because he plays a lot of drama films I don't get into, and I kind of felt in a way why he is really good. He's a good actor on films that I like. He's got a bad choice in films, but that I mean, if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do, and unfortunately, he also takes a political life, so he doesn't really act anymore.
Yeah, but I also got to hand it to for his first time like being on screen together. I thought Tarantino was also great too because he played such a really great fucking creeper in this. Like
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
unnerving,
Quentin
and he had,
Tarantino, like you said, he's played small like scenes and cameos in his films mostly, but this one was the only time he ever played a full-on movie, and he's always been shat on because he's not really a good actor. But I felt like this film he did good.
yeah, and I also love the rest of the guys too. Like I said, one of my favorite characters in this is Sex Machine from Tom Savini and all them. And I love the practical effects they use because I believe they actually use Tom Savini's effects in this movie as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You got to
which
think that Savini, Rodriguez, Trejo, Cheech Marlin, um, Quentin Tarantino, and I can keep going on. Tom Savini's part of it. They're all actually pretty close friends.
Yeah, and what I also enjoy too was like the movie just has such a fun vibe where you one moment it's got it has that Tarantino dialogue that blends pretty well for a vampire movie where they'll be having a conversation one moment and the shit's gonna go down in just a few seconds,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's got
It's a
so
blast, man. From beginning to end, I have a fucking blast with it.
I did too, and with that. Once again, one of my favorite vampire movies. I'm giving this a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter.
I'm phenomenal, great as well. I'm Film Freaks meter.
Yeah,
Phenomenal, 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 phenomenal. That's all I'm been.
Yeah, and this movie, and believe it or not, after this movie, it actually spawned a couple of sequels that came out, which we're
Yeah,
not going to go into
we'll go
detail
into.
with because maybe someday when we do an actual retrospective of the From Dusk Till Dawn films, we'll go into more detail with those movies. But let's just say that when it gets to the second movie, which was directed by Scott Spiegel, who wrote The Evil Dead 2, and it was also executive produced by Tarantino and Rodriguez. I gotta say, it's one of the worst vampire sequels I ever seen in my life.
Uh, the sequels, um, unfortunately, because it is kind of under Tarantino slash Rodriguez, it's their films. It's respected of them where their names are on the title. But this is where you start letting low budget directors take over
Yeah,
doing
and
work.
I
We're not going to go in no detail, but you know, I have a hard time remembering both of them. But from what I remember, man, you went from that movie to these.
yeah. Well, the third one I actually didn't. The second one, well, I fucking hated, and I that's a flat line for me. The third one I actually give some credit because it was actually it was decent, but the Hangman's Daughter one, but it definitely wasn't nowhere near as the first one. But I at least appreciate that they tried to call back to the first movie again, where they took place in the same bar, and they actually do give kind of a backstory with the bar from the first movie.
And out of respect, which again, their names are on the title again, but we never saw it. They also did a quick TV series of it.
Yeah, which I've actually seen probably maybe one or two episodes of the TV series that Rodriguez he actually came back to create. He actually created that series, and
Yeah.
he for I haven't seen it, but I've heard mixed things about it, so I might check it out someday. But believe it or not, there was also a video game that they did too, which to this day I still can't play. And believe it or not, in the video game, you actually get to play as Seth Gecko, and you're on a cruise ship, or I'm sorry, you're on a prison boat. And
Oh, maybe he got caught up. Maybe it's a follow up
it
after El
is,
Rey.
it is after El
Yeah.
Rey where he gets caught, and you play as Seth Gecko, and you're having to fight vampires. And they even bring
I
back
actually would have. I thought maybe they should have just ignore 2 and 3 and then do a like George Clooney get out of his little loony shit he's doing with politics and all that and get back into fun acting, and maybe he could come back.
Yeah, it would have been cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
but during this time as well, after From Dusk Till Dawn came out, which was a huge success and basically brought Rodriguez into one of the biggest directors of that era of the '90s. The following year, Tarantino decided to go back to his roots like he did with Pulp Fiction, but kind of do a different approach. And what he did with the next movie was instead of doing his own screenplay with something original, he decided to do something that was based on someone else's work. The following year, in 1997, we get Jackie Brown, which was written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. And this one, it is based on the book. It's actually based on a book by Elmore Leonard called Rum Punch. And this one, believe it or not, it took me a long time to actually remember watching this movie growing up because I remember a long time. I forgot this was Tarantino's movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have seen the movie, but I haven't seen it in many, many years. And every time I have watched it, it is also for some reason is a very forgettable film.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that depends on who you talk to. It can be very like the more forgotten Tarantino film that now not yeah. I haven't heard like a
this
lot
is also the first time. Yeah, this is also the first time where Tarantino decided to go straight forward, like just no bullshit. Let's just make a regular movie.
Yeah. Jackie Brown is one of those movies that it took me a long time. I didn't really watch until I was about probably 15, maybe 16. And this was after after really getting into Tarantino's movies. And with this movie, it's based on a film that I'm not really like familiar. It's based on a series of books that I hear are actually pretty popular. And what he was doing for this one, he wanted to pay homage to like the 1970s films that like Shaft and all them blaxploitation movies. And this one, he was able to get cast members from that era back in revitalizing their careers, including Pam Grier and Robert Forster. And this also has some other big cast members too, including Samuel Jackson, Robert De Niro, and Bridget Fonda, and Michael Keaton. Yep. And in this film, it deals with a woman named Jackie Brown, who's an airline flight attendant, who's basically doing drug deals across Mexico for her supplier, who's played by Samuel Jackson. And this film, she ends up basically getting caught with some cocaine, and that was stashed in her possession that she didn't realize was there. And she ends up getting confronted by these two ATF agents, played by Michael Bowen and Michael Keaton, and they end up having to get a deal with her to pretty much go after the supplier that runs it, who is Samuel Jackson's character, Odell Robbie. And throughout the rest of the movie, she also gets the attention of Max Cherry, who's the bail bondsman that bailed her out, that Samuel Jackson ends up coming to, who's played by Robert Forster. And this movie, it's basically his more straightforward films because unlike Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino was going for more straightforward, like
he was just going for more of a like kind of pretty much like a 70s, 80s, 90s throwback. While it was in the 90s, but pretty much your standard action film of those eras.
Yeah, and what it is basically it becomes a heist movie where where Jackie Brown has to pretty much negotiate with Odell in order to get her his money in order to get back because she has to face prison time. And pretty much throughout the rest of the film, they have to do a sting operation with the FBI by basically working with them in order to track by basically setting up to where they do an exchange to basically get Odell. And what they do is they do this plan where they end up going to they have to pretend she has to pretend to help the authorities while smuggling $550,000 of his money in order for him to retire. And so to do this, she ends up going to this mall and has an operation where she has to give the money to to Samuel Jackson's girl, who is played by Bridget Fonda. And this is pretty much one of those movies where it's a lot more self-contained because really there's most of what follows is a lot of series of dialogue scenes that are basically on the same level of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where there's not a whole lot going on, but when it gets to its like big moments later on, it builds a lot of tension up in Tarantino fashion.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies that, I mean, I could go on with different scenes, but it's really one of those really more straightforward films because really it's more of a heist movie where they have to pretty much diverge each other. And it's got some pretty funny dialogue, especially in the beginning when Jackson and Robert De Niro are talking about guns on TV and shit. He's like, here we go. AK-47, the biggest motherfucker you ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. But yeah, like I said, it's very forgettable for me. Like I have a hard time remembering a lot of scenes, but I do remember vividly on some of the aspects of the story.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that it's got a great soundtrack too, especially from blaxploitation era where and you also get small appearances from Sid Haig, who plays the judge who sends Jackie Brown on her way to jail, and then you also get a cameo appearance from Chris Tucker, who plays the first guy that Samuel L. Jackson bails out, and it's actually one of his few movies where he's playing a more serious role but while at the same time it's like in a dark humor type movie because he's basically Samuel Jackson's having to get him to go with him to go to this place in Koreatown, and he's luring him there. But the whole plan is to actually kill him because he was going to rat him out to the feds. So what he does is he has him get into this little trunk, and he has to hold a shotgun. And then when he gets out, he's supposed to surprise him, not knowing that he's going to get his ass killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then pretty much this movie just boils down to there's some twists and turns where you got Samuel Jackson killing him, and then he's trying to go after the money and all that, and then you have pretty much Robert De Niro who just loses his shit and fucking kills Bridget Fonda in one part, it's one of those movies that you can watch, but you can kind of almost not really forget about, but you can at least say that it's one of Tarantino's more lesser like in ways talked about movies, so to speak. But I still enjoy it, given for what it is, and it's definitely one I do like to rewatch from time to time. But I usually watch as part of like his collection, so to speak.
Yeah.
So with that one, I really enjoy Jackie Brown, but it's a lot more lower on my list of movies that he's done because it just doesn't have like that same type of like thrilling vibe, so to speak, like Pulp Fiction,
I
Reservoir.
remember, yeah, exactly. I remember the cast being really good in it, and I mean the story was decent. It's very straightforward. I mean, I don't know what to say really.
Yeah.
It has its moments, yes. Definitely not as worst, but it is considered lower on my list. So
Yeah. So with that one for me, I'm giving that one probably I want to say probably a high compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter.
I'm gonna be a little different with you. I'm gonna go a very low compelling grade on Film
Fair
Freaks
enough.
meter.
Fair enough. And the next movie after that, believe it or not, Tarantino kind of took a break as far as movies for quite a while. And this was one of those periods of time when, because Jackie Brown, believe it or not, was the first movie that didn't do too well the box office wise. And it showed that, he was basically taking a break from directing and writing. And he was taking some
Well,
time.
Quentin Tarantino, um, making complex stories takes quite a few years, and while that takes quite a few years to write and stuff, and then what he did with Jackie Brown, which he was trying to go for more straightforward, he knows he had to go back to his plan, what he does.
Yeah, exactly. And because he was also writing the script for a planned entry of a movie that he considered pretty much his most like epic, ambitious feature, which would become Kill Bill. And believe it or not, he actually pictured this as a pretty much one movie because
I think what he did also with Kill Bill, like it was paying homage to the Asian culture and martial arts.
yeah, that too. He wanted to
Yeah,
do something that
I
incorporated.
believe also that this was actually considered a paying respects to Bruce Lee, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And this film, the next movie we get to is Kill Bill Volume One, which Kill Bill was divided up into two movies, but it's technically one movie because the way they're structured and everything. They're pretty much like how we see of It Chapter One and It Chapter Two, so to speak. But pretty much what it is Kill Bill Volume One. Believe it or not, when I remember when the first trailers came out for this movie back in the day, this was the Tarantino movie I actually wanted to go check out in theaters when it was coming out because I got really fucking
I
hyped for
remember it
it.
was really hyped because we hadn't seen Tarantino in so many years, and it was told that he was going back to his old style. So
Yeah,
everybody, it was a big old deal. It was a big ordeal when this was coming out, the first one.
yeah, and with this movie, it brings back Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction, and you also bring back regulars like Michael Madsen and some other ones like Lucy Liu and Vivica A. Fox and all them who were coming back in movies. And you also
And
had
also the late David Carradine.
Carradine, yeah, David Carradine, and then pretty much in
If you
this
guys
story,
remember, he's known for martial arts.
yeah, especially back in the day when he did that one with Chuck Norris called Lone Wolf McCade, where him and
Yeah.
Chuck Norris fought.
Did he
And
do something called Kung Fu?
uh, yeah, I
Like a
think so.
series? I think it was called Kung
Yeah,
Fu
that's
or
right.
something. I
That's
remember
right.
when I
Yeah,
was young.
yeah,
It was a '90s TV series.
yeah, that's right. And and pretty much in this movie, it deals with the bride who this woman who's only known as the bride, who is pretty much left for dead after she ends up getting shot at this wedding chapel that takes place for a recession. And basically, straightforward. You have her pretty much wanting to get revenge on on the man and the crew that left her for dead. And
Yep.
well, as the title suggests, Kill Bill. And she ends up, the movie, it takes it kind of goes in the typical uh, Tarantino fashion, where it's divided up into different chapters that are all in non chronological order. Where
Yeah,
you
and
have,
this is also the film that also takes more of a kind of like, while he might have been pissed off about it, but he kind of takes something from what Oliver Stone did with Natural Born Killers, where we get a lot of animated scenes. We
yeah,
get like scenes of different shit going on, and
yeah,
then it's kind of hard to explain because it also has a very well, it has kind of like a '70s grindhouse with the music, uh, like the parts where they do some like '70s music.
yeah,
It's like it feels like you watch this in the '70s. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of hard to explain.
yeah. It's one of those movies that it like the one of the biggest things that threw me in with this was that this movie is nonstop action. Like from the very first chapter that we get into, where she's going after Vivica A. Fox's character, and they having this fight right there in their fucking living room and shit. Already from the get go, you can tell that Tarantino wanted to, pay homage to martial arts and stuff. And the way he choreographs these fight scenes are pretty fucking great. Like you see all the
Oh my god, dude, man, this is probably some of the best choreography fight scenes Tarantino's ever done in any of
yeah,
his films. Like
yeah,
as far as just hand to hand combat, um, uh, and you got Beatrice, the bride. She goes by Beatrice is her name in the movie. She wakes up after a coma after so many years, and basically, like you said, she meets, goes to Viva La Fox's character, and they're fighting like a motherfucker until her kid shows up,
yeah,
and basically her kid shows up, and they're kind of like, paying home, let's stop this for right now. But you start learning in the scene how like destined Uma Thurman is to kill everybody.
yeah,
Like she makes this big hit list of everybody involved, and she will not. She might slow down and stop if she has to, but she will get you. And she
exactly.
warns her. Viva La Fox in the scene where they kind of go in this good dialogue scene where they're just talking, just like like they were fighting 1 minute and then now they're friends 1 second, and they're basically bitching at each other. He goes, "Yeah, bitch." Viva La Fox was funny in the scene in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. And plus, what I also appreciated was that when this fight scene happens, there's no music playing. It's just straight on fucking brutality and all that when she's
Oh my
fighting her.
god, yeah. they're just fucking each other to hell, man. And basically, Uma Thurman's character doesn't want to like kill her in front of her daughter, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna do this one day, soon, and I'm gonna get you. You're gonna die, but I won't do it in front of your daughter."
Yeah, exactly. And then throughout the rest of the film, she ends up going on her next list of all the people that were involved, including
Although the part where she does get Viva La Fox was pretty cool because the part where like Viva La Fox had a gun hiding in a cereal box.
yeah, that's right. And it's actually called Kaboom, the
Yeah,
cereal.
and she goes, and get your bitch, boom, and then the way she fucking threw that damn knife through her, holy shit! And it happened right in front of the daughter. And Uma Thurman, man, like while she's very you get why she's after these people. It's weird like how some of the words of choice she chooses, like when she sits with the little girl, because the little girl happens to walk in and see her mom, that happened to her mom right in front of her, and she goes, if you ever feel ill about it, I'll be waiting for you.
Yeah.
I was like,
And that
oh,
actually, and they Tarantino actually said that he wanted to eventually possibly do a follow up where that girl would grow up to go after the bride. But
well, while we're on the subject of Kill Bill, have volume 1 and 2. People have been hearing rumors about Star Trek and the Django and Zorro going on. There's also option 3 where he's talking about doing Kill Bill 3.
yeah, that's what we've heard. But it's just he hasn't gotten around to it because it's something that he keeps going on and off about. But
Yeah.
anyway, the rest of the film deals where we also get into detail where her next target is, well, actually, it's in chronological order. Her first target that she actually goes after is Lucy Liu's character, who, as we discussed earlier with the anime segments, she was a girl that was actually grew up, who was born by an American soldier who was with a woman that was half Chinese, half in Japan, and she ends up,
Japanese.
yeah, and basically she witnessed her own parents get murdered. And because her father got killed by Bill with his fucking sword. Well, it's not really established if it's Bill in this segment because there's a guy that kind of like has the kind of look say of Bill with his like rings and shit. So it's kind of hinted that it is him, but it's never really clear. But he
And you
gets
know
killed.
what? I feel like this what he was doing not just paying homage to martial arts. I feel like he was just paying a homage to Asian culture altogether because a lot of the anime stuff is actually anime,
Yeah, it is.
very anime-ish, like mixed with animated, like Japanese anime.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I enjoy that too because the first time I watched it, I was thrown off guard. I was like, "What the fuck? This is different. I never seen this in a Tarantino movie."
To be honest with you, I was watching. I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, I was kind of lost, to be
Yeah,
honest. And it's not in a bad way. It's just like it was just very unique, and it's also told in like kind of remind me of Clerks, where it's like giving you titles.
yeah. And plus,
I
it's
believe it did that. So I was like, "What?"
yeah, exactly. And plus, also in the next, while this is going on, we get to learn about Lucy Liu's storyline, where she pretty much, after she witnessed her own murders, or what her parents get murdered, she got her revenge after she ends up fucking in the animated segment. She stabs that motherfucker, and you can see all the blood just like gushing everywhere and everything.
Yeah, it was like a gore fest anime, man. It was just like crazy. It's like, what the fuck, man? This
Yeah,
shit was just fucking straight out brutality, man. This was actually a pretty cool segment. And that's what Kill Bill is. It's a bunch of segments, it feels like, but it's all still a movie and the same story.
yeah, exactly. And then as she grows up, she ends up becoming one of the top assassins, and she ends up joining the Yakuza, and the leader of the Tokyo Yakuza, and she ends up basically running this gang. She basically becomes the boss after one of the bosses at the table ends up insulting her about her heritage. And she's like, if any of you motherfuckers talk about this, you're gonna be dead like this motherfucker. you
Oh
know?
man, she just straight up just flew like, and it pays homage to martial arts scenes where she kind of like lifts up in the air
Yeah.
type thing and runs and just slices this motherfucker's head. And man, they're really like it's unique gore. It's like that exploitation spray. It's overly done, but it's also fun to watch.
Damn.
Like
Yeah.
some
So
of the gore is just really out there.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And plus, we end up getting into where basically while this is going on, the bride ends up having to go to Okinawa in order to basically obtain a sword from the legendary swordsmith Hattori Hanzo. And basically, he is the one who created the sword for, who has a legend of who created the sword for Oren, who is Lucy Liu's character. And as a way to get back after he created it, because he's sworn to never forge a sword again after some stuff went down in the past. And after learning, well, she learns that Bill was actually a former student of his, and basically as a way to get back for him, she ends up asking him to create the sword in order to go after Bill. And basically, it all boils down to where the rest of the final climax takes place at this location in Tokyo, where at the House of Blue Leaves, they end up going to where the bride ends up having a fight with the Crazy 88s, who are the gang members of all of Oren's
Which
army.
they kind of remind you of the triads, the real gang in China, like triads, the mafia, Chinese mafia. Yeah, that's what they kind of remind you of, the triads. And the Lucy Liu has also got a couple of sisters in this, that that's part of it. I think they're her sisters, but that the one I remember mostly, and I kind of found her pretty cute, was the little one with the ball thing she swings around.
Yeah.
She was fucking brutal.
Oh yeah, dude. She
I
was.
found her more menacing than the rest of them.
Yeah, she was. And plus that part where her and the bride are fucking going at it, and she ends up fucking taking that plastic wood and fucking hitting her on the side of the head, and then her fucking eyes just start bleeding and shit. I was like, damn.
Yeah, I know, but that ball thing was scary. Like, can you
Yeah.
imagine getting hit by that damn thing?
Oh yeah, dude.
And she had a fucking fascination of killing people. Like, she was pretty much the Quentin Tarantino Dust of Dawn sister version, because she was the nutso. She loved killing.
Yeah, definitely. And then it pretty much gets down to where after she kills her, she ends up getting to it. This is the part where it actually was kind of cool because the fight first starts out in color when she's trying to fight the other Crazy Eight members, but then it goes to black and white, and because in order to get past the censors, they had to film it in black and white in order to get past
because if you guys remember this scene, there's like literally fucking 90 to 100 people get killed in one scene. It's like straight up fucking people getting their arms, their legs chopped. There's one guy got like everything chopped at once. Like, she was slowly chopping them in pieces. I mean, this was just straight out just fucking gore fest.
Oh,
and by the end of it, I swear to God, you could probably swim in this blood.
Absolutely. And what's also interesting was that they actually the uncut version is actually available in Japanese. And if you have a copy of in Japanese cinemas, they actually released this version in color, but they were able to get away with it because it was in
Japan ain't pussies like us. We have fucking MPA rules. They don't, and that's what pisses me off. I don't think there should be limitations.
Yeah.
If you can't see it, then don't let your family see it or your kids or don't watch it. Exactly. I think MPAA is fucking stupid. Japan don't have it. Their people see this shit and look at them. They're perfectly fine.
Yeah, exactly. And then after everyone gets slaughtered by everyone, we get the last guy who actually just chickens out, and he just getting fucking spanked by the bride with the sword. It's like, this is what you get for fucking with the Yakuza. Yeah. And then we get to our final fight scene, which involves with her and the Orin. And I gotta admit, the first time I watched this part, it was actually, I thought at the time it was probably my most favorite sword fights in a film I've ever seen before. Because the way that her and Oren are going at it, you can see how like aggressive that Oren is, like, pushing her back and shit. And there's one point where she fucking like just she slices her, and she even gets her on the ground and all that.
It was some crouching tiger, hidden dragon shit in this scene.
Yeah, and then afterwards, when we get to the final minutes, we see that they go at it, and there's actually a point right here that I actually do like, and it's the point where Oren is actually giving respect to the bride because she actually apologizes for the remarks she made earlier about calling her a white girl with a sword and all that. And it
Yeah.
actually shows that there's a part of her where she actually respects the bride as a member of the former gang they were with and all that.
Now, was this one or was it the next one where she trained with that one weird looking Japanese dude?
That's the second one.
Yeah, okay. That one we'll get in more detail because that training with him kind of remind me of those self parodies of those like Chinese making fun of Chinese movies. The way he was talking.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
pretty much she ends up going to their final battle, and she ends up slicing Oren's like the top of her scalp off, and she actually admits that it was an actual sword from Tori Hanzo, and man, it just shows that after their battle, she actually honors her in defeat, and I enjoyed that. And then pretty much it ends where she ends up taking Sophie, the her Oren's lawyer, and she negotiates to give Bill a message about how she's going after him. And we meant to talk about this earlier, but when the bride was first shot and wounded, it turns out that she was actually pregnant, and she had, well, it's assumed that it's hinted that she lost the baby after she woke up 4 years later. Then it's revealed in this scene that Bill tells her that her daughter is actually alive. And when I first seen that, I was like, "Oh shit!" And then it actually ends on a
And then
cliffhanger right there.
cliffhanger where he calls her and lets her say, "Oh, like talk to her or whatever." I think he let her talk to her. Can't remember. But yeah,
Yeah,
he reveals that her daughter's alive, and then she's got more to get on her list.
yeah. And then pretty much, this now I got to say, like, I don't really want to separate these movies together because I really consider them just one movie. But
Let's do them together. So continue on
yeah,
with
so to
Kill Bill
continue on,
Volume
so
2.
that we're continuing on here, the second volume, Kill Bill Volume 1, Kill Bill Volume 2 picks up where you have the bride pretty much going after Bud and all them.
Well,
And
don't it open up with what really happened that day? It like goes in detail
yeah,
and
that's
shows
right. So
us.
to
It
start it out,
opens up at the church, and pretty much you get actually what really did happen. And it
mm-hmm,
has like Beatrice was actually getting married,
mm-hmm,
uh, and that's what two does. It actually is pretty much closes up the loose ends that wasn't really explained in the first movie, and it shows that she's actually with another dude, and she's getting ready to get married, and David Carradine's character shows
Bill.
up, and Bill, and he pretty much shows up at the wedding, and you're led to, I guess it's explained that she used to be part of his clan, and they were together,
They were, yeah, they were former,
yeah,
they were former
yeah,
lovers.
they were,
He was
yeah,
part
former
of their
lovers,
gang. He was part.
and I guess she wanted to live a simple life, and she didn't want to be an assassin anymore. So she disappeared for many years and fell in love with this one dude, and that's what carries the story, where Bill went nuts, and all his people show up and they slaughter everybody in that church wedding.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And then pretty much after they end up, talking for a little while, she ends up. We get into what leads into this, where because it turns out that Bill had tracked her down after. It's revealed later, but there's an event that causes to where she, after leaving Bill for so long, wanting to learn a life, after she wants to get married and everything, Bill ends up sitting in the back, and then that's when we pan out and we see the actual members of the Viper gang end up showing up, and the Deadly Viper Assassination Squad show up, and they end up shooting everybody off screen. And
Yep.
what's also interesting is you also get to see Samuel Jackson in this scene as the organ player, Rufus,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
It's
then
actually
pretty
kind
much
of a scary scene because you can hear everybody fucking screaming like a mass shooting
yeah, and you
is
can tell
occurring.
it's
It's actually kind of pretty scary, man. And you know that David Carradine, Bill himself, he's nobody to fuck with.
yeah, and then we get into pretty much the movie takes a break for a little bit and from the like much of the action from the first part and takes more of a dialogue driven approach that we see in other Tarantino films where in this
Well, you got to
instance
think this film basically, while it completes everything, it also because in the first one, there's a lot of loose holes that weren't filled. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have to basically resolve everything like, like the first movie, and that they didn't cover in the first movie. And with here, they end up going to Bill ends up going to visit Bud in at his trailer that he's now living out in Texas. And Bill is now running a strip club and all that, and who's Bill's brother, or I'm sorry, Bud's brother. Bud is running the strip club and all that, and Bill ends up visiting him, and he tells him that the bride's going to come looking for you. Or have you practiced your sword play? And then he turns out that he said that he pawned his sword and he didn't need to use it. And he said, if she's gonna come, she can just show up right there at the strip club. And
it's played by Michael
Madsen.
Madsen playing Bill's little brother.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's like living out and doing that. And it's actually kind of funny because I like this character because he gets a job as a bouncer. And that you remember that part where they want him to clean the shitter?
Yeah. What really gets me is the part where he's talking to his boss because he shows up 20 minutes late and he goes into
that's what
office.
it was. Yeah.
And he goes back in there.
So I think he gets demoted to cleaning the shitter.
Yeah, he ends up talking to his boss, and he's like, do I pay you to be late? And are you coming in tomorrow? It's like, yeah. No, you're fucking not. And he's starting writing all his fucking names off the calendar. It's like that used to be your name there. It's calendar time. See?
Yep.
Are you working Tuesday? No. It's like, are you going Wednesday? Yeah. It's like, no, you're fucking not. You don't know what fucking day you work.
Yeah, basically he loses his job.
Well, he's still working. He's just basically demoted, so to speak.
Yeah, and he got demoted to shitters. Yeah, they're like, go clean the shitter.
Yeah, and pretty much after that, it ends up going to a scene where he ends up going back to his trailer in the middle of the desert, and he's playing Johnny Cash's music from. And we see on the ground that the bride is pretty much trying to sneak up on him. And if you remember in the first film, the bride was a lot more like aggressive and all that, and she was trying to get to her enemies more hands-on. With Bud, it was actually one of those instances where she wanted to go more stealth on him. And here's where it gets me, is when the moment she's trying to sneak up on him and trying to get in his trailer and stuff, the moment she opens the door, she doesn't realize she gets fucking shot by him by a shotgun. And that proves right there, Bud was actually the smartest member of the fucking group.
Yeah, he blew the fuck out of her. I was like, God damn.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. And then I don't know if we really went in detail. I can't remember because it's like these movies are really not in order. They're all over the place. There's a scene where you get introduced to one of the ladies on the list, which is the one that wears the eye patch.
Yeah, that's Ellie Driver.
Yeah, and basically they go and she got shot, and they basically bury her alive.
Yeah, bury her alive.
Yeah, her in the cemetery.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating about Bud in this is that he's the only one, technically speaking, to defeat the bride. Because unlike everyone else that her targets are, he is actually the very first one to beat her, to actually defeat her. So she actually gets defeated.
Yeah, and basically buried alive, and then you get a lot of offset scenes where, like, you get the part where she was in the coma and wakes up, or she could hear what was going on.
Yeah,
and and this is a scene from a guy that's usually in the Happy Madison movies. That one dude that plays a trucker.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. You start getting more backstory with the one with the patch, the lady with the patch.
Yeah, and you start to find out. Well, you also get to see flashbacks involving the bride when she was with Bill, and Bill was teaching her about martial arts and wanting to introduce him to the master, Pai Mei, who has the technique of basically the legendary 5-point palm exploding heart technique, where basically it kills the opponent after they've taken 5 steps. And
5 stabs with the hand, like with their palm, the 5 fingers. And but any 5 steps, back at the hospital scene, it goes back to how she woke up from the coma, and she wakes up. Before that, she overhears in her coma, like this guy that works there. He's the orderly nurse who's basically getting paid to let people fuck
Well,
people
that
in
was in the
comas.
first volume. When she's in the when she's in
Oh,
the coffin, she's actually
yeah.
thinking back to the flashbacks when she was in the
Oh yeah, that. Well, we
that
forgot
was
to
in part
talk
one.
about the first one, the first part where that one dude's like gonna fuck her and shit, and then that's when
It
she
bites
fucking
her,
wakes up, and, yeah,
bites
and
his.
bites the shit out of him, and
Yeah,
beats the fuck out, smashes his head to shit. I'm like, damn, with that door. But anyways, yeah, the while she's pretty much buried alive, she's learning the training. That's where we get introduced with the guy training her.
yeah, that's right. And then she ends up
Yeah.
going to, and she ends up noticing that this guy isn't doesn't fuck around because he basically teaches her in the most like brutal ways of martial arts, where she has to
It
pretty much.
doesn't it kind of didn't it kind of remind you of those like making fun of like Chinese films with Chinese people where they're having fun, they're just making fun of themselves, like parodies, where
Yeah.
like the way he was talking to her, like the way the guy looked, he looked really over the top, but he was funny, and he was
Well, what's
mean, he
funny
just fuck
is,
around.
well, that's funny because that character right there, that character Paime
Mhm.
has actually appeared in older martial arts films in the 70s. So this was a character that was previously that Tarantino wanted to reprise from other films because he was paying
Yeah,
homage, but also bringing that character back. And
yeah.
so basically, yeah, she goes through fucking hell in these training sequences where she's having to, punch wood and shit, and she's having to use chopsticks and all that, and having to basically do like death blows and move fast, and basically she has
And
to like,
he fucking overworks her and he beats the shit out of her too.
yeah, that
Like
too,
he does no fucking remorse. He's like, you want to be the. It's basically like if you were being trained by IP Man,
yeah,
the
it
It
man,
like fucking being trained by somebody like that. That's how powerful this guy is.
yeah,
And
and then
basically, not to go into too much detail, but she learned the finger technique by when she first used it was when she got out of she was able to do it with the wood, the coffin, and she bust through the coffin, was able to come out of the grave.
yeah, exactly, and then
That's when she learns that she knows how to do it.
yeah, and then
And
afterwards,
then we get into a segment where we go back to Michael Madsen's character and the eye patch woman, where
yeah,
they're kind of like
Ellie.
working together.
Yeah, her and Bud and Ellie are talking to each other, where she ends up basically because the whole point is that Bud feels like after he killed the bride and buried her alive, that he wants to give up the Hattori Hanzo sword and get about his money from Ellie to pay it for it. And then when she gets there, she ends up negotiating with him. And after some small talks, he realizes that when he gets his money, but inside the money, he gets killed by a black mamba snake. And
Which, by the way, that's her name, Black Mamba. That's what
yeah,
she's called, the Black Mamba.
well, that's
And
what
yeah,
the
she
that's what the
gets
bride's
bit
called.
by a black. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Well, the Black Mamba comes out of the damn thing and bites Bill like fucking. And I'll tell you right now, if you know the history of these snakes, they're considered one of the worst snakes to ever get bit by.
Oh yeah,
Like
dude.
they are the most venomous snakes, one of the most in the world, and they say that you can die in like 15 minutes. And pretty much, it's like 99% death when you're bit by one.
Yeah, it is. And then pretty much while she's talking to Bill over the phone about how her brother got killed by the black by because she frames the bride on killing Bud and everything, and she ends up getting uh
She's kind of brutal, anyways, because when she lets a snake bite him, she's sitting there taunting him and laughing about it and reading
yeah,
about mambas and stuff. And just he's sitting there fucking because what it is, man, it's a neurotoxin, and basically you suffocate because your muscles of your breathing, your lungs stop working, and you pretty much fucking just. It goes into great detail,
yeah,
but yeah, and basically that's when I believe that's when uh, uh, Beatrice showed up, the bride.
yeah, that's right. And then they have this really cool fight scene where they're going at it like fucking crazy, beating the shit out of each other and all that. And uh and they're thrown around in the fucking trailer, and man, they tear his fucking trailer to shreds, going through like the bathroom and everything and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we get that cool scene where she rips out her other only eye she had left.
Yeah.
She goes and does that little eye thing where she rips her eye out, and basically she's sitting there without no eyes. And fucking, she's sitting there running, and you got to think that snake is still in that fucking camper. So you're
Yeah.
wondering, led to believe that she might have gotten bit because she left her in there.
Yeah, and then pretty much, we'll also come to think of it. You remember how earlier when Bud said that he got rid of his sword? Well, it turns out that he actually had it the whole time because it was the sword that was given by Bill. And the bride actually ends up taking that sword and has a fight with Ellie, and it was to show that that Bud actually still was still had kept his sword in the future. And then basically after
The
she
one
fucking
who,
points her eye
the
out, it
one who
also
technically,
reveals.
it's funny, is the one who actually does do the killing on the bride, technically wins, ends up not being killed by the bride.
Yeah, technically speaking, he did get killed by the Black Mamba snake, which was what the bride's code name was. So technically, he did get killed by the bride, in a way, metaphorically
but
speaking.
but
But
at this point of the movie, I think we've went through all the lists but Bill.
yeah, but also what's funny about about Ellie was that it's revealed in the flashback she actually killed Pai Mei in retribution for her getting her fucking eye cut out or
Yep.
popped out, and basically she ends up getting blind uh by the bride, and then she's screaming and hollering, and you're led to believe that perhaps she did die from the snake, possibly. But anyway, we get to Mexico where she ends up coming across this pimp that's played by Michael Parks, who, if you remember from our Dust Dawn, when we talk about From Dust Till Dawn, it was revealed that in that movie he also played a character that was the sheriff. In this movie, he's playing another guy who's the this Mexican pimp, and he tells the bride where Bill is. And then when she goes there, she discovers a very shocking revelation that her daughter is still alive, and she's now
Yeah.
4 years old.
Yeah.
And when they get there, it becomes kind of a very like touching and kind of a almost in a way a heartbreaking kind of scene, really, where you got her and Bill like hanging out with her daughter and everything, and you get this
Yeah.
really genuine moment where she like puts so much love into her daughter and everything.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think, like, she's never met her daughter. They
Yeah,
cut her. Apparently, you're learning in the back story is they cut the baby out of her
yeah,
stomach and then took the baby. And yeah, she had, that's the first time, and that's her whole journey is for her
yeah,
and to kill Bill. But Bill was sitting there, having small talk with her, just like acting like nothing's ever bad happened. It's like you genuinely talk until it gets dark because, she's destined to, not let this shit go. And basically, you have him fucking with her because I think he tranquilized her or
he
some
did.
shit.
He ejected her a truth serum in a dart. And pretty much after they're having accounts, she basically also recounts that when she was pregnant, that she basically left the Viper gang to give their daughter a better life. And Bill said that Bill thinks that after she thought that she died, and basically she ordered when she found out she was alive, she realized that the father of her child was missing out of her life, and she wanted to pretty much get revenge by having her get murdered at the chapel. And
Yeah.
and then pretty much it all boils down to what I consider like the most quickest fight that you kind of ironically you kind of that was done in the most ironic way, where we have the whole build up to where we get to Bill, and we have one of the shortest fight scenes, which in a way actually pretty actually clever, where you have the bride and Bill go at it where they're about to sword fight, and all of a sudden the bride ends up doing the five palm exploding heart technique on Bill, and then Bill pretty much succumbs to his wounds from it.
Yep. He
And
talks to her and he goes, You learned the five finger. Because that's something Bill didn't even know how to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And she goes, Yeah. And then basically he pays her like the first movie where it's paid respects. And he goes, and she paid respect to him, let him. He's like, Now can I get up? And
yeah,
then he gets up and he drops dead.
yeah.
And
Because after
basically she takes her baby and her child and they live happy ever after.
Yep. And then you can tell that after she kills Bill, that she actually feels like very remorseful, and but she's happy to start her new life with her daughter. And yeah, it pretty much ends where she ends up living, like you said, happily ever after with her daughter. And
Yeah.
overall, now this I can honestly say that with both movies combined as just one movie, I
Yeah.
love both of these equally, but it's really hard
Yeah.
to really like kind of gloss over. So I think if it was probably
A
structured,
lot of people, a lot of people said that they thought the first one was a lot better. I see most people say the first one's way better than the second one. A lot of people have problems with the second one. I think the second one does do more tie-ins better, but I think the first one does a lot more unique shit, like with the animated shit and so on and so forth. I mean, it's really like give or take which one does better than the other one does better than the other. It's like I really have. I'm pretty evenly matched, to be honest with you, on both of these.
yeah, that's what I'm
So,
saying. Because I mean, the movie is a lot more dialogue driven in the second half with the second volume, but it
mhm.
still really puts you in the mood of what Tarantino's known for. Because I think that if it was structured a little differently, we could have saved like all the action stuff in the second act, while the first act deals with like the dialogue driven. But
Yeah,
so I think
I
if
think
they, if
I think what he was doing was he was scared of doing that because people might have came off the first one as kind of boring, and they wouldn't see the second one. So that's what he did. He did the first one where it kept you invested with all the fucking action. You're like, whoa, this is awesome. And then you went and saw the second one. You're pretty much trapped to see how it all dialogued back in together.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And what I also enjoyed about the both movies combined is the way that we present the overall story with the bride, with a woman that started out as an assassin and she actually seeks pretty much redemption in this, and she finds a
yep,
new life after when she gets her daughter back and
yep,
everything. And she and what I also enjoy too is the performances, especially from David Carradine and everyone else. It's all fucking outstanding. In fact, I think this might
yeah.
be my favorite
Oh,
David Carradine performance.
it is for me, and also say that I believe this is the last movie we see him in because tragically he killed himself in real life.
Yeah, and we also deal with what I also do too is I love this was the first time that Tarantino wanted to mix in like older scores of movies, but also do original music as well. And I actually enjoyed a lot of the musical choices they put in there, especially when we have the first volume when you're having like the clapping music and all that when they're fighting, and then you have like the other music that dives in with like at the beginning of the first one where it's got the "I Shut You Down" bang bang song that plays, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
there's just
really
a lot
like
of
this song.
yeah, and
It's got a lot of '70s, very throwback '70s, especially when martial arts were really big in the '70s. So,
yeah, exactly.
but if I had to give a grade with each one of them, hmm, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's hard to really, but like the first half, I consider on the action department and just everything alone as its own movie, I would give it like a phenomenal grade. But if I'm doing it overall as just one movie, I to kind of scale to kind of even it out, I'd put like both of them in one category as pretty much um like a probably like a probably a low phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter overall.
Yeah,
Like just only
I
because
would
there's
probably say,
certain. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like no, what you're saying. I think that they both are low phenomenal grade in Film Freaks meter one and two. They're about evenly done.
Yeah, they are, and and then pretty much with Kill Bill, it also sparked the ground where Tarantino was so in love with a lot of this movie because you got to think before by the time that Kill Bill Volume One also came out. This was also when he was actually introducing movies as that he executive produced with. Like off topic, he also executive produced a movie called Hero starring Jet Li, and he was the reason why that film went to theaters because he wanted to market himself all over it to because he was in love with the martial arts culture. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I love both movies about the same. So now after Kill Bill Volume Two came out, we pretty much took a hiatus with Tarantino for a few years because after this time, we didn't get to see any other thing for him until 2007. Well, actually, the very following year, he actually worked with, he partially worked with Robert Rodriguez again for a short segment, a short scene in Sin City. Now, if you remember, Sin City was directed by Rodriguez and was based on the comic book novel by Frank Miller, the graphic novel, so to speak. And in that film, it deals with like a whole bunch of like anthology format, similar to Pulp Fiction and all that. But
And it was made in comic book form,
yeah,
color.
it was shot in black. It was pretty much in like chroma key, where they took like black and white scenes and added color palettes like here and there with the actual scenes. And even this day, I consider that one of the most like gorgeous looking films of that year, of 2005.
Yep. Yeah,
And
easily.
and what fascinated me about this was that, because I didn't know about this until it came on DVD, because I didn't see it in theaters. On the DVD, it said that it was special guest directed by Tarantino. And what the scene is because just to kind of lead up to this, there's a character in this film that's pretty much a gang member that's trying to get the corpse of this cop inside, get away from this town and try to get rid of the body, because he realized that the guy that was killed was a cop. Well, there's a scene that Tarantino directed, which is the conversation between Dwight and the corpse of Jackie Boy, who's the cop, played by Benicio del Toro. And you can tell that the way the scene is the scene is directed and everything, and the way the dialogue goes, it feels just like Tarantino's, like his own movie. And I also enjoyed the fact that, because throughout this entire scene, what's interesting is the character's already dead, but Benicio del Toro's character's Jackie Boy comes back to life, and Dwight's like hallucinating, thinking that he's actually alive and pretending that he's alive. And so they have this weird conversation where back and forth, Jackie Boy is actually lifting his fucking neck up and shit, and he can't really talk too well, and it's a really funny scene, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I remember that. But
yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. And plus, but yeah, overall though, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I love Sin City a lot, and with that one separately, I really enjoyed it. So after that, 2 years later, we got into what was we called the return of the Grindhouse era, where in 2007 it was given that both Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino were coming back to do 2000s to do Grindhouse, which was basically a double feature of one movie by Tarantino and one movie by Rodriguez, and they presented this as Grindhouse, Death Proof, and Planet Terror. And if the first one we have now, keep in mind, Grindhouse was something that was very popular in the 70s, because in the 70s you would have a lot of drive-in films that came out, and there were movies that were basically known for exploitation, stuff that you pretty much
Well, you got to think, when he got on the Kill Bill 1 and Volume 2, that's considered somewhat 70s throwback. You can tell that with those two movies, and with Jackie Brown, that he had a hard on for 70s grindhousey type things. So that's why they decided to do Grindhouse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And plus, also, what was cool about this, when I first saw the trailers of it, and also within the movie itself, we get even fake trailers of the movie itself. Like, you get to see fake trailers of Machete, which eventually would become a movie by Rodriguez. And then you got also the fake trailers by, remember the one, the Thanksgiving by Eli Roth, where it's got the fucking Killer Pilgrim?
Yeah, because you guys got to think that Quentin Tarantino did something with Eli Roth that was just, we're not going to go into detail at all, but they worked together in Hostel 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. And he executive
but
produced.
Quentin Tarantino, we won't talk about them due to the fact that he did something to get his name on, but he was never on set. It was weird. It was like, okay, it was like bizarre that his name was attached to anything. Because while he is executive producer, he was hardly ever in the studios for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so what was also funny was that there was also that other trailer we got that was directed by Rob Zombie, called The Werewolf Woman of the SS. And believe it or not, man, that's a film I actually want to see Rob Zombie fucking do if he ever got around to it.
Exactly.
And
I think
and
that's what spawned Rob Zombie to start making movies.
well, I
Other,
mean,
well, he did the House of Thousand Corpses and all that stuff, but that like,
that
yeah,
was
you get
after
what
he
I'm saying.
did. That was after he did Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when we get to the main features, though, we get the first one, which is Planet Terror, which this one Tarantino actually produced with, and he actually starred in the film as a rapist in the movie. And this, yeah,
Yep.
and basically this one, this is was the one that I had a fucking blast with because of this one.
Dude, yes, I had a fucking blast. And you want to hear the funny thing how I discovered these movies? I discovered these movies because they were either on Showtime or Cinemax. One of them was playing them back to back. That's how I
Yeah,
watched it. I
wow,
watched it on one of those channels. I was like, "What's this?" I'm like, and I turned on just in time when it did Planet Terror. I was like, and I like as the movie went on, it just invested me. I was like, holy shit, I like this.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And plus, what interesting was that this film, even the one where Planet Terror felt more like a throwback to John Carpenter, where it kind of like the Thing, or like or something around the era that has that very like grisly, like grotesque, like fucking practical effects, mono, where you have fucking like these weird creatures that are come to
Well,
life.
not only that, while they did that, he also shot the movie like it had a lot of grind to it.
Yeah,
Like it
that's what,
was
like on
grindy
film
as
grain.
hell. Like trying to watch something back, and I don't know if you're not old enough, you're not going to remember. But back in the '80s and '90s, watching shit on VCRs that are aged quite well. Grind. It had a lot of grainy grinds that would pop through the middle of the screen,
Yeah, and it
and
would
that's
also be
basically how he
common
shot them.
and it would also be common in drive-in theaters, and that's what the view they were going for. They were going for that very gritty film grain look that you would see from the like from the 70s. And what I liked about the Planet Terror as well was that this film like has like where else are you going to see Rose McGowan playing a fucking a strip or a go-go girl, a go-go dancer that has a fucking machine gun on her leg, you know? And then you also got, other
This,
colorful characters too, like, Fred Rodriguez. You got the fucking Tom Savini back playing a dumbass cop, and you got
yeah,
Michael Bean being a badass like he used to be. This movie has
yeah.
such
Got
a great
Michael Bean
cast.
back in cinema. You had fucking you had Josh Brolin as the nurse's. He was a doctor who was kind
Yeah,
of a fucking asshole,
yeah. Then he
and
became the
Bruce
evil doctor.
Willis.
Yeah, and then you had pretty much Molly Shannon playing Dr. Block, and then you also get a surprise appearance from Michael Parks, who also reprises his role as Sheriff McGraw from the other Tarantino s movies, and
Yeah. And
you
not only
also
that, this was like at the point where Rodriguez like started making. I mean, Dust Dawns, of course, were like this, but this is where he really started making balls to the wall shit, like event, like that would lead to Machete and everything else.
Mhm.
Like this is the crazy balls to the wall Rodriguez is
Yeah,
what started
absolutely.
Planet Terror.
And I gotta admit, like out of his films that he's done, holy shit, man, you're talking about some of the most like goriest shit he's ever done with his movies. You're talking about
It,
when because basically the whole plot deals where an experiment goes wrong at this government facility, and Bruce Willis also pops up as a guy that's wanting the secret weapon that Fred Rodriguez and his comrades are trying to get, and and because they're trying to get this like experiment to keep them on from this disease that they have, and they don't realize this pretty much this disease can pretty much turn you into mutations. And when they end up getting loose, it turns everyone to like these weird fucking crazy zombie looking motherfuckers, and it
yeah.
starts going in balls to the wall insane with all the gore they get away with this.
Oh my god, dude! Like, there's a part like they're just bum rushing motherfuckers and just tearing them to shreds. Motherfuckers just screaming while they're getting fuck. I mean, this shit. I will say that this shit topped even Romero's shit in
Mm-hmm.
gore. Like, holy fucking hell, this shit was like. In fact, didn't this movie get an NC-17 because it was so brutal?
It was, I believe, when it was released, they were both released as an R, but they later released director's cuts on video. But they got past the censors, that's for sure, because there's a lot of shit in
There
here
was
that I think they would get
motherfuckers
away with.
getting ripped, especially when Tom Savini gets ripped in like 7 pieces. I'm like, whoa,
Well, and you also
holy
got
fuck, these
the opening.
motherfuckers.
The
Because
op-
what's weird is it's not really that they're zombies where they like to eat you. They just like ripping people to shreds. That's their
yeah,
thing.
and what's weird is they also had they we actually in the opening scene alone in the opening segment where it shows the actual like government pursuing stuff, we actually see human testicles that are mutated and shit. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this movie was like, man, like I mean, it's like one of those, you got to be fucked in the head to think about something like this. But I love it. I love it. I loved every bit of it. It's just like, oh my God, it doesn't matter about the story. It just was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
And I'll tell
exactly.
you right now, I was really into Freddie Rodriguez character in this movie.
I did too. I like it. His actual name is actually called El Rey, like off from Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, and he's like this badass guy that's like that is like really good with guns.
hmm
And Michael Biehn has like a lot of run-ins with them because he's apparently an outlaw,
hmm
and they're led to having to team up. Everybody has to team up because these motherfuckers are killing everybody in town. And then like he's supposedly got like a backstory history where he's like a badass with guns.
Exactly,
Like
and
he's
you also
unstoppable.
got yeah, and you also got Rose McGowan's character, who's a dancer who ends up getting pretty much in a bad when she ends up having to go to the hospital after she ends up, getting her leg pretty much in missing, and uh,
Well, that was when her and because her and Freddie Rodriguez's character, they were a couple, and that had a lot of dark past together, and they're trying to reconcile. And I think it was a car crash,
yeah, it
and when
was
they
the
crashed,
zombies
yeah,
tearing it
yeah, the
off.
zombie ripped her leg off, and Freddie Rodriguez killed the zombie dude.
Yeah, and then basically the when they get to the hospital for the first moment, we get to see our glimpses of the fucking like zombie esque creatures.
Mhm.
I gotta tell you, this is one of the most brutal hospital scenes because well, when we first start seeing it, we start noticing that one of the victims that come in there is the guy that's getting worked on by Josh Brolin and Marley Shelton's characters, and when they end
Mhm.
up noticing that they're gonna have to sensorize his leg, uh, basically it ends up well, it's actually kind of funny in this part where she's like, I got my three little friends here. First is my blue friend, he just puts you to sleep. Then my yellow friend, he puts you in a state where you're about to be you won't where it puts you almost in a comatose. And then the last one is you'll never see me again.
Yeah.
And basically
And
it
you
breaks
also get
out
a
like fucking
backstory.
crazy.
Well, it also gets in a backstory with him and that girl because he's dating the other girl. He's dating the nurse there, and they're married. They have a kid together, and he's kind of an abusive prick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because he beats up on her and shit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
And we got, and then yeah, pretty much the rest of the story is them having to survive after the shit breaks down the fucking hospital. And we even get that
yeah,
really brutal scene where when Josh Brolin gets attacked by that dude that we seen earlier, he ends up spraying the blood on him, or he ends up like getting killed by that fucking like saw thing that he carves him with, and all
yeah.
that. And basically the rest of it deals where they're having to also go at this diner that's played by Jeff Fahey, and if and he's and it's funny because he's actually he's one of those guys that runs this rundown diner and he's trying to make the perfect sauce and shit, and he's trying to get the recipe for his brother and all that, and it's just this dude cracks me up, man. When I first see him in this movie, he actually became one of my favorite actors, and because he would later
Yeah.
show up in Rodriguez's Machete, and
Yeah. Yeah, he is fucking hilarious. I
yeah,
enjoyed him. But yeah, basically they're all like prepping for a big battle, and that's where like, and then on the side note, we also get this scene where like the nurse lady, because Josh Brolin now turning, he's like trying to fucking like you see the bubble, his face all bubbled up and shit, and he's trying to go after her, and then she gets away and wants to get her kid, and they have to go to this one place because they're looking for her parents or something. I forgot what they're looking for. So she tells her son to hold on to this weapon just in case one of those maniacs come. And you see her walking. Next, you know, you hear a gunshot, and the fucking kid blew his own brains out.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what the fuck? This movie has
Yeah,
no fucking chill.
exactly. And then we get to our pretty much our climax that involves where they end up getting to the military base where it all started, and that's when all fucking hell breaks loose. And well, that's when we basically are stopping all of them. That's when we get that fucking that leg on Rose McGowan's that gun on her leg, and she starts fucking
Yep.
kicking ass and shooting everywhere and shit on that motorcycle. And
Yeah.
then we get to see one of the most like really well. Before that, we get one of the most weird scenes before that where she gets her and Marley Shelton get captured by Bruce Willis's character, and they end up getting basically they're about to get raped by Quentin Tarantino's character, and it's fucking hilarious because he comes in there and he's like I don't need the fucking gas. I can do this, and you see like the fucking like his ball sack like dropping and shit from the mutations and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, also, I believe we get that sad scene where Freddie Rodriguez,
Yeah, I got
wasn't it
you.
him?
Well, it was, and they also
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
that, him and that other dude, they end up going to uh, confront Bruce Willis's character, and they revealed that Bruce Willis was actually the guy that killed Osama bin Laden before him and his men got killed and infected. And basically, as a way of honor, they end up killing him after he mutates and all that. And yeah, it ends up becoming where she finally gets that gun on her leg, and they end up getting. She ends up kicking ass and everything, and then Frey Rodriguez ended up getting basically shot, and he ends up getting wounded from it from them, and basically they have to leave him behind.
Yeah.
And
And he pretty much dies.
yeah, and then basically it's revealed in the epilogue that now that she's also got a fucking minigun now, and she starts leading the group to survivors in the Caribbean. And
Yep.
they also revealed that basically it's revealed that they're giving they renamed Mexico. The name El Rey is also alluded to Mexico in From Dusk Till Dawn, and so
Yep.
yeah, it pretty much all ends where everyone is safe and sound. And I gotta tell you, man, like this is one of my favorite Robert Rodriguez movies. It just
It is one
has
of my
just so much.
favorites, other than with Dustin Dawn. It's my other favorite one. Man, I fucking love the shit out of this movie from beginning to end. I just love how crazy it is. Every now and then, you need a film that doesn't even have to be normal. It just has to be just batshit crazy, and that's why I loved it. You need something different, and this is what this movie delivered. But and like I said, I fucking man, I don't even think I didn't. I don't think I did not like anything in this film. I mean, I had a blast with it. And with that being said, it's a phenomenal grade in Film Freaks meter for me.
Yeah, same here. It's a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter for me.
But
And
and now because this is a combo pack like Kill Bill was, I thought the movie was over. And next thing you know, another movie pops up
yeah,
instantly. And this is Death Proof. And this is Quentin Tarantino's movie.
yeah. And this movie, believe it or not, this was one that when I first heard about it, I got kind of interested because I like the idea of because in this story we deal with Kurt Russell's character, who's Stuntman Mike, who is a famous stuntman from in the movies and stuff. And basically, the whole story it's pretty simple. He's trying to stalk these girls and that are at this bar and everything, and he ends his form of because he's basically like it's like a slasher film where he's trying to stalk his prey and he basically wants to kill him with his car. And with this
Yeah,
movie,
he's
he's
got
got
like,
me.
kind of like a highwayman or something, where he
Yeah,
just goes around and he likes to fucking kill people by using his stunt car and killing them in grotesque ways. And while the first half deals really good on that, with these characters, these girls who are pretty much, I don't know what they were doing on the road. They're going on a journey somewhere, and
yeah. And
and
basically,
it's weird because you think it's okay, it's gonna be five girls, three or four die and one lives.
yeah, and
And uh yeah, it ends up being, in the middle of the film, they're sitting there driving just regularly, and next stuntman Max just pops out of the highway out of nowhere and hits him head on, like probably like 150 miles an hour. And this scene was gory as shit.
Yeah, it was. Now, before that, I will admit the first half of the film, I actually
Mm-hmm.
got into as far as Quentin Tarantino's movie, like for this one, because with the first half, when we get introduced to Stuntman Mike and everything, where it's introducing the girls, the dialogue I felt is very quippy and does have some, very funny moments that I actually enjoyed, especially the
Yeah.
parts
Didn't he
where
try to? Wasn't Kurt Russell trying to get with those girls or something? Or was that the second half?
No, it was. I think it was the first half. Yeah, and
Yeah.
pretty much um, it pretty much deals with him trying to stalk his prey and stuff, and basically what it boils down to is the girls are going to stay at this cabin or whatever, this lake, and he wants to try to stalk them and everything and all that and kill them. And what he does is he basically spends the whole night with them talking in just small piece of dialogue and stuff, and he even gets a lap dance from that really sexy woman, that butterfly girl. And
Yeah.
we also deal with him pretty much encountering Rose McGowan's character, who says she just wants to ride home. And that's when we realize that he ends up, after having some chit chat and everything, he ends up getting her in the car with him, and basically it becomes a point where you can tell you just can't trust this guy. And what I love most
Mhm.
about Kurt Russell's character at first is that he's very manipulative. He can be a really cunning, laid back kind of guy that you can chit chat with and everything. But something's not right because the fact that he has that car. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that scene because that's the scene where he slams on the brakes and she bashes like her whole face wide open.
Yeah,
Yeah, ain't that the scene where like
that's
he
right. Yeah.
slammed on her brake?
Mhm.
Yeah, and then fucks her to hell like bad. But yeah, like he kills those one girls, and out of nowhere, like these girls you're following halfway through the movie, he shows up and fucking just rams them like 150 miles an hour. And this scene is actually pretty gruesome because they shoot it in like different takes where you can watch how each one of them die. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was like, holy shit!
Oh,
Especially when you see that one girl's leg fucking fly off and get cut off and fly in the air and shit. I was like,
yeah,
dude.
and the tire disintegrating that girl's face and everything. I was like, motherfucker. And basically, he does that. He kills all of them, and he's injured in the process, and he's put in the hospital. And you follow these cops who are pretty much been investigating a bunch of weird murders and wrecks, and they're kind of suspecting he's the guy
Yeah,
that's been doing it. And you got one that's basically saying, how can we prove that? How do you know that? Well, one believes it's him.
yeah,
And then we get to the second half.
yeah. I'll admit that first opening, like 45 minutes or so, give or take, I actually
Mhm.
was on board with it because I was like, okay, this is the kind of shit I love right here. You got Kurt Russell fucking killing people like this. I want to see more of this shit. Then
Mhm.
we get into the second half where, unlike people that had problems with Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 with the way they're structured, well, Tarantino kind of dropped the ball with the second half here. Um,
Yeah.
let's just say
It's
that when he
like
gets introduced, well, go
the
ahead.
the way the film is that really was weird, and it took me a while to catch on because the how the second half ends. I'm like, didn't I just see the first half on like how they survived and everything? And then I was like, or how they died and they're alive. And come to think of it, it's like Quentin Tarantino made a movie, made the first half, and then rebooted the first half.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because again, we're following five fucking girls again. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? And these characters in this second half, I could not get into.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And here's the thing, too. These are talented actresses that we get introduced here. We get Rose McGowan, or I'm sorry, Rosario Dawson. We get Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Zoe Bell, who's known for stunt work in New Zealand, and she's also a big collaborator on Tarantino and his other films as a stunt coordinator and doing stunts for various actors. Especially if you remember her, she was Uma Thurman's stunt double in the Kill Bill, and also we have this other girl that they're with as well. So unlike the first four girls that I actually found tolerable and actually, very genuine, the second group of girls I found fucking annoying as shit. This dialogue
Oh
that they
my
run
god,
through is
yes.
so like not. I mean, it's supposed to give you a Quentin Tarantino feel where it's supposed to be like, okay, I can tell that he's going for that genuine conversations they have here. But these conversations these women have for 30 straight fucking minutes, I was fucking bored.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino dropped the ball on this one, and it's kind of a shame that he did this. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a shame. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know if he might have just hired somebody to finish it, or if he was late to the production and was like, "Oh damn, like my work isn't finished, so I gotta hurry up." I don't
Yeah.
know what happened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this movie, it's weird because the way it's also shot too, because they have a section where they're inside this diner and they're talking about like having sex and all that, and and talking about getting cars and shit. The way it's filmed, it seems like Tarantino wanted to do a throwback to Reservoir Dogs, where it shows the camera panning around and stuff, and you can tell that he was
And
going for that approach. But the reason why it doesn't work is because the dialogue here doesn't feel fucking interesting. This is not the kind of
it
dialogue
doesn't.
that works.
And really, to be honest with you, with as much talented actresses you have in there, I just don't feel like their conversations even blended. It's just
Exactly.
like I was like, especially with Rosario Dawson talk about guys, dick and stuff. It kind of reminded me of the scene where she was in Kids,
Yeah.
talk about the same shit. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And
Yeah.
then you follow these girls that are pretty much driving to wherever the fuck they're driving to, and basically I believe it's a actually I believe it ended up pretty quick second half too at that,
Uh,
where like
that I
they
mean,
kind of I mean there really isn't much really going detail because really it's all about talking
yeah, there because
up
the whole point of
until
this is they pick up Zoe Bell from the airport to go basically to do this stunt with her because she wants to basically feel alive, like in a real life stunt. So what their plan is to go to this car that they get from this guy who, if you remember, he was the same guy from Kill Bill Volume 2 that tried to rape Uma Thurman's character in that movie in the hospital.
yeah.
And when they go to the dude, it's they end up leaving Mary Elizabeth Winstead there, claiming that she's basically telling him that she's pretty much a porn star, and they leave him there, and she possibly gets raped because if you know that same character, he probably would is does that to her, and then they end up going on this fucking road where they end up driving across, and they have Zoe Bell on top of the hood, and she's doing the stunt where she's hanging on and stuff. Which I'll admit, the way that Tarantino gets to this stuff is where the movie kind of picks up, because the way it's
Yeah.
actually filming the actual car chases. Because what
Yeah.
happens is they get encountered by stuntman Mike, who's been following them this entire time, and that's when he goes after and run and starts to run into them.
Yeah. And he started fucking with them and stuff. This takes place in the daytime, which was kind of a weird setting. Um, but basically, that he's chasing them around and stuff and trying to fuck with them and stuff. And I mean, what basically the women end up turning the tables on him.
Yeah, they end up after he ends up getting in crashing their car and crashing around each other and everything. He ends up coming to a stop, and he gets out and he's like, "Well, it's been fun." And then he ends up gets shot by one of the girls. And this is the point where the film where I felt like it was kind of losing me as far as his character, because here is where they start to make Kurt Russell's character a fucking pussy, because
Yeah.
now it shows that he basically is wounded and he's starting to plead to be for mercy. And to me, I thought
And
that
when
the
they're
way
sitting
it's
there beating the shit out of him, they're all kicking him around and stuff. And they're
yeah,
all just, and it's like you get like this 2 minute segment of them kicking him around like a fucking hacky sack. It's like,
yeah,
God damn.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, there was seriously a problem with the way this was structured because with the writing here, you go from Kurt Russell badass in the first half, and then you have the second half where he's a completely different character. And I thought I was watching a
Yeah,
completely different movie.
you could have made Stuntman Mike a fucking iconic character, but you
Yeah,
basically just like fuck him in the second half.
yeah. And pretty much they end up, beating the shit out of him, and then they beat him to death. And then we get that final scene in the credits where one of them ends up fucking kicking their feet right on his fucking and bashing his skull in with their feet. And I was like, damn. And then I was like, oh shit. And then it pretty much ends there. And I'm like, well, Tarantino, out of your movies, you kind of let
Yep.
me down on this one.
Yeah, this one after watching this is indeed the worst Quentin Tarantino film. It's watchable mainly for the first half, but this is his worst film he's done.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but I can tell that I'm only interested in half of the film because that first
Yeah.
half it feels like classic Tarantino and everything with the dialogue, everything set up. That second half felt like an amateur knockoff version of Tarantino that he was basically
Yeah.
doing a character of himself. You remember all those knockoffs we talked about earlier with all the Boondock Saints and everything? Well,
Yeah.
imagine Tarantino did that on his own as a self parody.
Not only that, I don't think I've ever watched a film that legitly made a movie and then rebooted itself in the same movie.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? That's what, like, whenever I watched it, I think the first time I watched it, I got up because after watching Planet Terror, because I had to do something. And I watched the death scene and then I had to go do something. And that was the end of it. It was over.
Yeah.
Uh, I go back because I was able. I remember they would play it all the time. Those two movies, and then I saw it on. I said, you know what? I didn't finish that one. And
Yeah.
then I turned it on, and it wasn't where the death scene was. It was these girls kicking the shit out of them. I go, hold on here. I thought I watched the scene where they all got killed. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And I mean, hell, he even fucking the girls looked. There was a girl that looked exactly like the other girl from the first segment. I'm like, okay. I'm
Yeah. That's what I'm
like,
saying.
alrighty here.
It's
Oh
weird.
man.
It's a very mixed bag for me. Like, okay, to get some at least my some of my pros, I do say that Kurt Russell's great, especially in the first half, and he does have a great
Yes.
presence on screen when he's doing his usual stuntman Mike stuff. And I will admit the car chase at the end was actually one of the best car chases I ever seen in a film. The way it's shot and everything, the way you get like the really cool like real life stunt work they use with the cars and stuff, I thought was pretty cool. And then you got like the death scenes. The death scenes I thought were great, and mainly in the first half and everything. And in the dialogue, given for what it is, it still works in the first half. It's just it really boggles down to the second half where it just loses me in there because you bring in characters that I find uninteresting and they just don't work in this
I
type of
also like the I also enjoyed the concept of a stunt driver going mad
yeah. It's kind of like if you
and
remember
using it to his
Steven
advantage to
Spielberg's
kill people. I
Duel.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was
Hmm.
actually reminiscent of Duel from the 1970s that Steven Spielberg did, where you had like a killer trucker and all that,
Yeah.
and basically, or like Joyride for that matter. And
Or one I remember watching was years ago I watched this one. It did make theaters and it was I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Highwayman or some shit. But it was like this maniac that was killing people on the road and he drove like a weird monster truck.
mm, yeah,
I forgot what it is. It's a horror film, but I think the motherfucker wasn't even human, so it was kind of like weird.
yeah,
It's very forgettable. A lot of people can't remember it, but remind me of that. But yeah, this was definitely weak.
yeah. So that being said, with even though it's definitely my weakest film, there it does have its moments, but overall, I'm going to give Death Proof a low average Joe on the Film Freaks meter.
Yeah, I'm gonna go extremely low on the Film Freaks meter.
Well, fair enough, and we'll be coming back in part three of our retrospective of Quentin Tarantino's movies in the future. So we'll we'll see you guys in our next one. Have a
All
good
right.
one.